Morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Joe Scarice, your host and founder of the Creative Bird Strategies Clubhouse House, as well as now the live podcast on Apple and Spotify. So I'm really happy we were here again this morning, Saturday morning, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Every Sunday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to get going here in just a few minutes. I'll start inviting some people in. And let's get that up there. Second. Let's see here. There we go. Start inviting some people in as well and get started here. We'll be discussing navigating the fix-to-rent journey. A little snowy here in the Northeast. We are experiencing about 3 inches of snow, so we had to cancel our South Jersey workshop this morning, which I was going to have. We pushed it over to next Saturday. So if anybody that was signed up for it, they can come up over to the Surety Title in Marlton, and we'll be having a great little discussion for 2 hours, and I'll be sponsoring luncheon as well. So I'm just going to invite some people in first and get started here. I always love to talk about fixed to rent. I think it's a very popular, obviously, objective for the real estate professional getting into the industry. All right. Morning, Justin. How are you? Yeah, it's a little late on the room today, but we'll make it work, right? So, little update on news. So we have our podcast now, which is on Apple and Spotify, which is sponsored by MB Capital, Realty 411, Percatech, and Abstract National, which is a nationwide title company as well. So we're live and kicking. We've done about 10 podcasts so far, which I'm quite excited about. All very great downloads. We're getting anywhere between 250 to 1,000 downloads a week now, and we've only been up and running for about 3 weeks now. I was away for 11 days, but we were still pushing podcasts out. So we did about 4 last Saturday, which was a little exhausting, but we covered a lot of space, and I'm really happy about where things are going there. We obviously have 2 events that we collaborate with Realty 411. One is in Denver in March, which I'm excited about, the Great Mile High Summit, as well as the one in Philadelphia, which now on Google search, it's hit the top. So the Philly Realty 411, which is at the iconic Montgomery Museum in April. Very excited about that. I have about 8 speaking engagements coming up throughout the next couple months uh, at various real estate investor group meetings in the Northeast. And I have a great announcement today that I accepted a position as a lead of origination of sales for Lenmark, which I'm very excited about. I'm reporting back with my original report at Lending One when I was there when Blackstone bought Lending One, executive director Johnny Pinnell. So we'll be teaming up. We're developing software. We're actually going to be training correspondent lenders. So if you want to correspond with Lendmark, it's our money, it's balance sheet money, and we got plenty of it to put to work. I'm quoting rates that I have not been able to quote rates in several years since the market shift. So I'm very excited about this opportunity. I will be having some training courses on here with some potential sales executives. If anybody's interested, of course, it's a unique opportunity. I could send you the pricing sizers to really better understand how to price a deal out, whether on your behalf or a client's behalf, and where you can make money on it as well. So it's a unique opportunity. And also, last but not least, I just created and finished, and it'll be activated as of, I think, by the end of this month, no later. I will be licensed to teach asset-based lending, continuing education for licensed realtors nationwide. Understanding asset-based lending. It's a 2 or 3 credit CE course. I'm very excited about this opportunity. If there's an opportunity where I can come to your state and All I need is about 45 days notice and just extending the certification to that state. I mean, as long as it's 2 months out, I can potentially teach it at any state in the country at any given time with the proper notice. But I'm very excited about it. I just finished that up and got it submitted, and that will get approvals probably in the next week or so, and kind of go from there. So understanding asset-based lending, becoming a loan officer in the commercial lending space. So if anybody's interested in discussing that and get off of Clubhouse, by all means, please reach out to me. We have unbelievable pricing in the 1 through 4 space, debt service coverage ratio, as well as bridge. We look at multifamily, 5 through 25. We don't like mixed use, anything above 49% of the rentable square footage of the subject property. We do have an appetite for new construction, whether it's spec or development, build to rent. We also we also offer blanket loans. I'm doing a massive blanket loan in North Carolina, another one in Philadelphia. That's still a flavor. It's not as popular as it once was, but there's still opportunities for multiple properties being blanketed at the same time. So anytime they like to have that discussion whether you want to be an account executive or better understand how to price your own deals out, I could walk you through how we can price those deals out. So we'll get started in our discussion today, and I really think this is really always a great a platform to always go from navigating the fixed to rent journey. Okay, but first we always want to get into some news of the market. I don't know if anybody's been paying attention to the market itself. Let me get it here. There you go. So very volatile market this past week. Inflation numbers are bad, just bad overall. We've been talking about this for almost a year now. And for whatever reason, the media is just trying to blind us to how bad it really is. I mean, the rates jumped to an unbelievable number. I mean, it went to 7.14 base rate. I mean, it's really crazy how it jumps so high to a new 2024 high after another report shows higher inflation. The consumer price index and the job reports are two most important considerations for interest rate momentum as far as economic reports are concerned. But it was always so for more than a decade leading up to 2022. CPI was not remotely as important because inflation ceased to be a major concern after 2010. So right now, we're in a very volatile market right now where a lot of real estate agents and service providers were banking on the media forcing the Fed to lower the rate. It's just not going to happen. And I really don't foresee a spring market in favor of the seller of a home. I see the spring market in favor of the investor as the market inventory gets extremely stagnant and days on the market increase. And this is going for all classifications. I mean, this is not just it's not just for you know the single family investor. This is all across the board. Things are going to stay on the market just a little longer. So just keep an eye out. That I got that on Mortgage News Daily, which I thought was an interesting article. But again, it really made some serious impact in the last couple of days. One other interesting article caught my eye, and I really feel this is because of the younger generation. Some of the younger generation is identifying real estate as an opportunity. Younger generations have gained more wealth than any other age group since 2019. Thought that was a very interesting article in CNBC. The total wealth of Americans under 40 surged by 80% to $9.5 trillion between the first quarter of 2019 and the third quarter of 2023. The biggest driver of the wealth gain for younger generations was stock and real estate. Granted, those under 40 are still the poorest of all the generations. But still, it's very interesting to watch how real estate and stocks are impacting the younger generation in investment. So let's dive into this subject today, navigating the fixed to rent. Really what, as most people know of, is the BRRRR strategy, and how to invest in real estate in the BRRRR method in 2024. BRRRR method is a real estate investing strategy that involves buying properties, renting them out, and selling them or holding. The BRRRR method is an acronym that stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. It's a property investment strategy where investors buy low-priced properties, and fix them up and then create this enhanced value. How do you use the BRRRR method? From a financing perspective, there's some certain techniques that you really want to be very careful of due to timing, okay? If you have really low experience or no experience, say you're a licensed realtor and you see the opportunity that can create itself in getting involved with some real estate, you really want to keep the purchase price under 45% of the repairs to the purchase price. So if you're buying something for $100,000, it's your first rehab, try to keep it under $45,000 to the purchase price. Why? A lender gets very concerned of completion. Most lenders are not in the business of lending money to foreclose on the client. So you have to think this through, right? Why are we being so cautious in making sure that you get completed? Because we want to see you succeed. Because as you progress in the BRRRR method or the fixed to rent method, money does get lesser expensive. Okay. So hypothetically, if you've done 5+ rehabs in the last 24 to 36 months, you're looking at pricing at roughly on bridge money, fixed to rent money, somewhere around 10.25, and with an origination of 1.25. That's how thin money can get for you right now on fixing and rent. And this is based on a 75% loan to value on the after repair value. So you got think about how thin that money can get. When you're starting out, money's going to cost you somewhere between 12 and 13% and 2 and 3 points, because we're going to take an extra concern of your completing the project. And we're also looking at a higher risk that we might have to complete the project for you. You really need to understand what a draw schedule looks like, the breakdown of your repairs, understanding after repair value, understanding the cost and the profitability that you need to see in the refinance option. Right now, there's options up to 80% loan to value on refinancing. There's also the average rehab, whether it's a $45,000 job or the $100,000 job. The average rehab to complete right now today in the industry across the country is 6 to 7 months. So you need to understand the fixed to rent journey a little better. You need to build up that team, somebody that understands the strategy behind buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and redo. So I'm gonna give you a quick scenario. And again, I provide worksheets on all these, and now I'm also providing pricing software to price your own deals out, whether it's a fixed to rent loan, fixed to flip loan, and now a debt service coverage ratio loan. You could price your own loans out. Also, the BRRRR strategy is for somebody that at least has a 660 credit score or better, because most lenders, including myself, I'm no different than a lot of these other lenders, you need to have an exit strategy. So let's simplify the BRRRR financing for you, the fixed to rent strategy. The purchase price is, I'm sorry, the purchase price is $200,000. Down payment is $50,000. The loan is $150,000. Cost of rehab is $40,000. Total investment $90,000. The after repair value is $320,000. If the rent is $2,400 a month and taxes and insurance kind of fall in line, I can refinance that loan up to 75% loan to value based on 1.2 debt service coverage ratio. That means $240,000. The payoff the initial loan is $150,000, cash left over is $90,000. I have little or no money into the deal. If I can get the 80%, my rate might be higher by a quarter point to a half a point, but I'm still able to capture all my money out plus cash. Debt service coverage ratio programs now allow to go down to 0.80 on the debt service, but you're going to pay on that rate. But if you're cash flowing, I just say buyer beware, because I mean, listen, it's always nice to get 80%, but you're not leaving a lot of room in that burr long term. God forbid that unit goes empty. So you got to look at the vacancy of that property. Is it a one family? Is it a two family? Maybe you could risk a little more on a two family at 80%, more so than a single family at 80%. I'm always cautious to leave a little room in the deal. God forbid something happens where they have to sell the property off, whether you have to readjust the property because of vacancy or deferred maintenance. This is another thing. When you're in the debt service coverage ratio environment, a good lender that it's actually their money, meaning our balance sheet money. Okay. We have a lender that is not a broker, has various prepayment options, whether it's a 5-4-3-2-1, 3-2-1, 2-1, 1 year, or no prepayment. But you pay that in the rate. You don't pay that in origination. So you need to understand and have a more deeper discussion with your direct private lender to better understand what is the game plan with that property as well from a BRRRR perspective. Because at the end of the day, rates will fluctuate. They could come down in 3 to 4 years. But right now, we're looking at the national average of 7% for the last 40 years, and we're square right in the middle of it right now. And I don't see that changing just because of a presidential election. I see us seeing a very steady, stagnant market. It's somewhere we're going to be floating from high sixes to the mid sevens, and for the next 24 to 36 months as we kind of get through this economic recessionary environment. So the fixed to rent opportunity itself is a massive strategy for building generational wealth and creating cash flow.
It has manageable a manageable level of repairs that need to be done. So I try to avoid full rehabs. I've done those before, and your ability to it increases the chances of you losing money. I think when you the size of your rehab. So sticking to smaller scope rehabs, maybe 30% or less of what the purchase price is. And so just trying to do things where I can make sure I have a value add in an equity standpoint, and most certainly from a standpoint that I can increase my rents in the spot, so that my overall values can increase. So just that's what I have to say with regards to that this morning, Joe. That's kind of my strategy and what I'm working on in the moment.
Justin, can you stay on mic for a minute?
Sure, sure.
So you're general construction as well. You're a general contractor, correct?
Yeah.
So what are you seeing in your market right now? Let's talk about your market currently, your current footprint. Are you seeing more tired properties, or are you seeing properties more that just need full? Are the tired properties the ones that need full rehab? Are they tear down? Are there opportunities of putting lipstick on a pig and getting a property restabilized with better rents right now? And how's Section 8 comparatively to the market rent in your market?
What I see right now, as far as the lipstick on the pig, this is my concept on that, Joe. And I think I briefly shared my opinion on where we are in history, and as far as the condition of the majority of our properties. So people who could go and buy these $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 properties, that, let's just for the sake of the description, say these are the houses that grandmother grew up in or was raised in, and would pass them down to mom, and then pass them down. He tried to pass them down one more time. Landlords trying to do the same thing. I think that strategy is worn out. So the lipstick on the pig philosophy is you're getting less, and you're getting fewer and fewer opportunities to put lipstick on a pig, because your next play, remember, your follow-up play is why you spend the money on the front end, right? And so you are going to be hard pressed to sell a building, a property that you put lipstick on that's age old, right? Someone else will be able to step in and put another generation or two behind that product or building. At some point, the financing is going to switch to being willing to fund these old buildings with lipstick on them, and they're going to be, they're going to push for these new buildings. There's a lot of new construction going on. And like I said, you're either going to put lipstick on it or you're going to do a major rehab. And so a lot of times the new construction or as much new as you can put into a building is kind of where you want to lean to. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of build to rent, a lot of full renovations, right? Because when you do your full renovations, you can actually get to your electrical and your plumbing and upgrade those things. Because I'm in Louisiana and also because of all of the insurance issues that the nation is really having, but specifically down here, Louisiana, Florida, and so on and so forth, these increases, there are a lot of new standards and regulations for building. So, for example, you know, for these hurricanes, we have to have a certain grade of window siding. They have to be put in a certain way. And when you compare the way these buildings are being built with their new standards next to something which you just put lipstick on it, which was going by the codes several years ago, the risks are significantly greater. And I feel like lenders are going to catch that on and begin to really press on throwing that into their what they use to determine if they want to fund a project or not. So I think there are a bunch of things that we're growing as a nation. We're growing as builders all over the nation and permitting offices and just trying to get things together for this next couple of generations is what I see. And during that transition, there are a lot of old ways that are going to be. So that's my opinion, Joe.
It's really interesting you brought this up. I did a presentation, Justin, in Connecticut this past week for the Landlord Association, and the government alone is just trying to really crush the landlord in these tenant-friendly states. It's absolutely amazing what they're trying to do to control the landlord. And hey, listen, not all landlords are good, but to put some of these type of I would say like communistic type of standards in these, and I hate to say blue controlled governments throughout the country, is going to put a stranglehold on the smaller landlord. The institutional investor, I hate to say the BlackRocks, the Blackstones, the State Streets, the Vanguards of the world, they're putting up this Class A rental market, and it's definitely creating a separatist environment in the rental space. You see a lot of booms still up in a lot of these urban cities, but I mean, none of them are for sale. It's all for rent right now. We have such a massive inventory of rental coming to the market right now, which is going to flood the A and B market. The affordability, housing affordability right now, the Section 8 play in most of the blue cities throughout the Northeast, at least east of the Mississippi, where my proficiency is. I'm very well aware of what's going on the west side of the country, but my focus in lending is east of the Mississippi. Um, you know, it's going to get very interesting with rents now flatlining. You're trying to navigate that fixed to rent, hopefully creating this appreciable rent, and then you look at the rent at the end of the day, and the market tenant is the professional tenant that understands how to take advantage of the landlord. I hate to say it that way. And then you have the Section 8 tenant, the house, the more discount, the more where the vouchers involved, the government assistance is involved. They know a lot of the ins and outs of how this works too. But there's some states that say, hey, listen, if you do anything wrong, you could lose the voucher for good. There's some states, hey, you know what? You're always going to be on government assistance. You're not going to lose your voucher. I mean, I think there has to be some type of like enforcement. Hey, listen, if we're going to give you government assistance up to 80%, 90%, 100% of the financing to live somewhere, you need to treat the place correctly. But also for the landlord needs to understand how to set up certain thresholds in protecting that space from damage and to be able to turn the unit around or turn it over in a quick way of process. There are certain things that you should do um, to the walls, to the kitchens, to the bathrooms, to set up some precautionary deferred maintenance. Because the better fix the rent journey is to make sure you're thinking about all the potential deferred maintenance issues as you renovate the property. The lipstick on the pig mentality to the renovation to get the property to the rental space, it's going to show and identify the wrong tenant if you're just hodgepodging the rent, the fixing to the property. So you need to secure certain things and go through. We actually in April when we do the Philadelphia uh, event for Realty 411, we're going to tour a couple of properties where there's certain precautionary deferred maintenance suggestions that you need to do no matter what to set yourself up to be a very smart investor long term. Are you ready to transition from that fast-paced fix to flip strategy to the steady long-term gain of holding rental properties? Wondering how to shift your strategy, not just to survive, but to thrive in the rental market. Transitioning, a lot of flippers are now holding rental properties because they just can't turn the properties over. So it's requiring a shift in your real estate investment strategy. You have to understand you got to focus on better renovations, swifter profits, and holding rental properties is about playing the long game, generating a steady rental income and building equity over time. You really have to dig deep and understand your rental market comparatively, market rent versus Section 8. You need to understand your comps based on the finishes in your market. You have to make money when you buy. All the money's made in when you're buying. If you overpay when you're buying, you're going to be chasing that money down. Just because an asset-based lender can go up to 80% loan to value based on debt service coverage ratio 1.0 better, that's not something you want to have to exercise every deal. You're going to run thin. And if one deal topples your cash flow, I've seen individuals with large financial portfolios lose it because a couple bad properties didn't work out for them. So you really have to do a deeper market analysis. Start with a deep dive into the local real estate scene. What's hot, what's not, what are people willing to pay? Keep your finger on the pulse with market trends. Look at similar homes that are selling for and really get into the heads of potential buyers. Look at what's going on in buying and renovating. Sales strategy. I mean, you really have to have a craft of sales strategy to making buyers flock to you or renters to flock to your property. You have to understand the math. The worksheet that I provide, which understands Mayo, is a standard. You can kind of play around with it, but it gives you a standard how to buy the property. You have your after repair value. You back off your cost of 30%. You back off your repairs. That's a starting point of what you should be buying the property roughly at. But I think the most important part of that equation is the repair cost. You really need to understand how to put together a construction sheet and match that up with a scope of work with a general contractor. Now, I toured a property with one of my clients this past Sunday. He was like, "Oh, he was so upset. He was 10% over budget." I said, 10% over budget? You should be ecstatic. You're only $5,000 over than the original budget you were at based on $45,000. I said, most people are 20 to 30% off. Your property looks fantastic. The property's ready to go from Section 8. Now, one thing I did give him advice on, he kept on trying to get his general contractor to come back to do certain things. I made a quick decision for him, said, stop doing that. Get him onto your next project. Get a handyman, maintenance guy over here to finish up what you're doing on this project and get the shit done. And he listened. He said, I hooked him up with a really good button-up guy, sent him back over there, got the 4 or 5 things done. Stop whittling down to get things done. Get this project on the market and get it to Section 8. And he listened. And now we're refinancing the property. So I don't mind going out there and taking a look at properties just to kind of see, to be that like extra person looking over the shoulder. You really need, like, he bought it correctly. He renovated correctly. He's going to get his money back out. He might have a little money stuck in, maybe 5-10 grand, but his cash flow is good. He's netting $500 a month. So if you take 500 and you got $10,000 into the deal, you're having all your money out within 12 to 18 months. Look at the cost benefit. You're holding the property for the next 30 years, or you're holding it for the next 10 years. Your rate's only temporary. You have either a 5-4-3-2-1 prepayment penalty, a 3-2-1 prepayment penalty, or a no prepayment. It really depends on what you're trying to play with the deal. Understand the financial plan, understand renovation improvement, and you have to understand your exit strategy when you're buying. understanding the potential debt service coverage ratio, and the cash on cash return to that project up front. Good morning, Joseph. Welcome. Thank you for your patience. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to the discussion this morning, navigating the fix to rent journey.
Good morning, Joe. Love the passion and really love what it is that you do here with the education that we do with everybody in the room, and it's on replay for everybody to hear. That's the difference between having just someone who's trying to sell you a loan and someone like yourself who's also a real estate investor and has doors as well. So I'm a buy and hold investor. I've done several burrs now. I'm in contract to get my next property buy and hold on online, should be by the end of the month. And one thing that you really pointed out in your last bout there was, listen, time is money, and a lot of investors just don't get that, right? um, you know, Call the contractor back, and here's a lot of punch list items, and I already paid him. Are you going to wait a week for that guy to get back to you, even though you paid him, or are you just going to get it done on that Saturday and get it on the market? Because at the end of the day, that place being held vacant is costing you money, right? We always talk about holding costs. And a lot of new investors always telling me, I manage my own properties here in Jersey, Joe, as you know, and we have a lot of discussions, especially at the SJ RIA during the event that I hold, about property management and how time is money, and I'm wasting time spending managing my property. Yet these people are wasting money letting a contractor um, delay their project unnecessarily when they can get stuff online. And I've seen it all too often, whether it's a buy and hold or it's a fix and flip, that they just, oh, well, I'm waiting on the contract because I don't want to lift the hammer to get anything done. That's their job. And they get too caught up in it, and they wind up losing money out of the deal. I've also been told, oh, well, if you have money in the deal, it's not a true burr, which is not true. And the principle that you just said, Joe, if I have five, ten, or $20,000 in a deal, and I'm getting a cash on cash return, right? For me, it's always cash on cash, right? Uh, if I'm leaving 20,000 in a deal, which I'm doing at the end of the month, and I'm getting 15 to 20% on my money, right? 20,000 in a deal, $400 a month is $4,800 a year, which is about 20 some odd percent of my money. I'm okay. Would you take your $20,000 and lock it up in a CD and get 20% on your money? In 5 years, all your money's returned to you, but I don't even look at it that way. I'm just getting 20% a year. And in 5 years, I could cycle that money back into another deal. Um, so there's just so many ways to skin the cat when you start doing burrs, right? Knowing your numbers is another thing, right? If you're just shooting from the hip, well, that's a whole nother story. But you have to know your numbers. You have to know what your costs are, and don't over renovate. I was guilty of it. We all do it on our first deal. You over renovate, and as long as you're comfortable with your cash on cash return, that's okay. But Joe, no more true words can be spoken today.
So, Joe, stay on mic on this because you have a great group, a subgroup for RIA that kind of goes into the haves and have-wants. Everybody's saying there's not enough inventory out there, while I'm identifying really good investors that are finding deals. Why are there some people saying there's no deals out there? And I have other individuals that come to me with some unbelievable deals, and I'm financing them all day, whether it's refinance or fixed or rent, fixed or flip. Is it the mindset? Is it analysis paralysis, or is it the lack of education and understanding, how to buy? Is it the lack of identifying a good contractor? Where do you see the biggest factor, in your space? And then, you know, like you're only buying one or two properties a year at best, right? You're not buying 10. You're not trying to buy 10. You're trying to buy the right one or two. Are you finding somebody that's complaining, about leaving money in the deal, somebody that is on their first deal, their 10th deal, their 15th or 20th deal, or do they actually have a real financial plan? Like, or they don't have a financial plan? Have they sat down for a financial strategy? I'm throwing some things at you to just kind of get your thoughts on a little overall things before we move through.
So when you start saying deals on no factor, I think it's a combination of a lot of stuff, right? It's a combination of Listen, real estate investing has been put on the forefront over the last several years, and there's a lot of new folks out there that see the kids with the rented Ferraris and selling those courses, right? But I think that there's a term that I hate, right? That is buy box, right? And I think that goes into my uneducated theory that people go and limit themselves into this group, right? And this is what the definition of a burr is. You have to get all your money out for it to be a true burr. And they don't look at it from other angles. So I think definition is a part of it. The other one is I think that they're relying on just one sourcing of properties, right? And people look at me crazy when I say I look on the MLS, and I'm willing to go look at those houses. Joe, you came out with me on a couple of them on the MLS. They look like great deals. You're competing with the homeowners in the single family market, but I mean, I think that they ignore those factors, and I also think that they're not sitting there doing their numbers correctly or willing to do their numbers right. But a couple of properties that I go see on a weekend, I probably analyze 25 to 50 during the week as properties come on. I also know my markets, right? I sit there and I watch houses not only that are on the market, but houses that sold. I have filters built in for rentals. So I see what the rents are in the areas and where I'm rented and I'm interested in getting into. So I can see that prices are dropped. Rentals are sitting on the market for 30 days. Foreclosures are coming on. And I can see how all that's going on. And I just continually educate myself on the area. So I think people just go and they want to be sometimes told what to do or told what's a good deal, have their hand held, which is okay. But I think that's where they have the trouble finding the deals. I mean, sometimes there's just no deals out there, right, Joe? It's just something that just doesn't make sense. But it all depends on, then you need to pivot. And if you're not willing to pivot, then you sit down and you wait, which I've done, right? And I'm okay with doing that. But, you know, if you're going to complain that you desperately need a deal, I don't think that they're just willing to look anywhere.
Well, there's a couple things I think people are sometimes looking in the wrong spaces. Okay, now there's investor group meetings that we go to. There's networking events that we go to, but there's also some very unique opportunities that you could find people not in a good situation where you might be able to be. I hate to call it a vulture of opportunity. Zoning meetings, neighborhood association meetings, finding out who's really not doing well. Okay, who lost in a case at the zoning meeting. That's more in the urban setting or suburban setting for that matter. It's not all about just going to a real estate investor event with a bunch of wholesalers. I mean, most wholesaler deals are not that good. I mean, they don't understand how to evaluate repair. They don't understand how to evaluate an after repair value. And they're looking for an exorbitant amount of money for something that doesn't work on the back end. So, Joe, I mean, are you seeing more investors getting licensed in real estate to have accessibilities to evaluate their own deals on listings to separate themselves from the current wholesale environment that where a lot of them are not licensed? What's your thoughts on that? Are you seeing that in the RIA itself?
No, I haven't noticed a lot of people getting their licenses to have access to the MLS. I mean, there's just so much data out there now that you don't need access to the MLS to get it, right? I mean, the only thing, back in the day, you needed access to that MLS, but now with these databases, Redfin, Zillow, Trulia, and all those others that go out there, I mean, I could go and I could do my own comps now. With one of those sites, I can look at properties that sold, and I can put a period of time, and I can zero in on a map, and I could do my own comps. So I can educate myself. So I don't see people getting licenses. And you're right, the wholesalers. I had a discussion with a wholesaler the other day that said, "Oh, well, you can make a killing on this property, so my assignment fee is higher." But your assignment fee kills the deal. So yeah, I can't pay you $30,000 to finding the property. Oh, but it would cash flow nicely. But I can't pay you. Oh, this will rent for $3,500 all day, but the comparable rents are $2,800. So I I think that a lot of investors rely on the wholesalers to do the numbers for them. And listen, the wholesaler's job, and not speaking ill of them, is to sell that deal. That's their job. It's to sell that deal, and you need to be able to analyze that property. And if you're going to sit around and wait for someone to tell you what's a good deal or not, uh, you can find yourself in trouble.
There's another thing is, when did there a shift when, you used to take a standard fee in wholesaling anywhere between 2,500 and 10 grand. And now the wholesaler thinks they're in command and demanding 20, 30, 40, 50,000 dollars. Where did that paradigm shift happen? Like, I just don't, like, some of these guys walk in like they're the king dingling of the world. I mean, I was at an event and this wholesaler works in. He thinks he's Vince McMahon walking into the WWF. Okay, I've never seen such cockiness. I'm like, dude, you don't cure cancer, man. You're just calling people in distress. I'm like, you're not doing anything that's scientific here. Like, where did this whole thing happen? Where the wholesaler became the almighty biblical grail of real estate. Like, how did that happen?
I can speculate, right? And I have no science behind it, but it's the younger generation, right? At the end of the day, I would argue that the wholesaling game is a younger guy's game, right?
Yeah.
It's lot in the grind. You're making those calls. You have to have the time, and the younger generation. And I feel so old saying this, right? Even though I'm younger than you, I have to put that out there. Um, but the younger generation is all about the flash. They're all about the materials, the materialistic style, right? And again, it goes into the Instagrams and the YouTubers who are flashing their money and all that other stuff. So now they have to figure that they have to make all this money. I was at an event in December. I was at a Christmas party, a real estate Christmas party, and there's this kid that walks in, young kid, he's got the gold chain, has the Fendi belt, has the Gucci pants, the Louis Vuitton shoes. He probably has about $1,000, if not more, get up. And I'm sitting at the table, and I said, "Who's the guy with who has no money? Who's the broke guy in the room?" Right, pointing to him. And he's like, "Oh, how'd you know he has no money? He's a wholesaler." So as fast as they're making the money, Joe, is as fast as they're spending it. And I've had a lot of wholesalers tell me that, the fastest we make it is as fast as we spend it. So they're not looking at these deals where they're saying, "Hey, I got a great deal as a wholesale. I'm going to buy it myself, or I'm going to give it to myself and bring it in as a buy and hold." I had another wholesaler who told me, "Oh, but I could sell this for a $20,000 assignment fee." And I said, "Do you realize the potential this has as a buy and hold if you hold on to it? But I can make $20,000 now." It goes into the theory of, right, they did the study with the kids. Do you want one marshmallow now, or do you want two in 15 minutes? Right? And the person who waited for the two was the smarter one, but a good portion of them said, "I want my marshmallow now." I think it's the same principle, Joe.
Yeah, I just don't think I mean, some wholesalers get it, but I think the average wholesaler doesn't understand that asset-based lending, the industry, was created for them. The industry where you at least have a credit score of 660 and above. You identify a property that works, right? You put the time in, you have a corporate veil, an LLC, you could refinance it without tax returns, without W-2s, pay stubs, 1099s. You just need to have a little money in the bank. Even if you take the joint venture or the partnership that with the person that has some money in the bank and take a small percentage of ownership to show transaction completion in the industry will get you further in that fixed to rent space. Because the first couple questions I have, let me go over what my questions are, Joe, and this is, you've probably been privy to this when I'm talking to a client. What's your name? What's your email? What's your phone number? What's your credit score? What's your cash reserves, checking, savings, retirement, lines of credit? Because I open up unsecured business lines of credit for clients. All right. What's your LLC? What's the address of the property? What's the asset type? Single family through four family, 5 through 25. Does it have mixed use piece to it? What is the classification of loan that you're looking for? Bridge, fixed to rent. Fine. What are you buying it for? How much? What are your renovation costs? What is your after repair value? Right? Then I break down when's the purchase date. So I know if I have to close in 15 to 20 days or 30 days. Fine. No problem. What's the estimated rent? Well, I don't know. Well, you better know. You're telling me this is a fixed to rent wholesale, right? So you need to know what your market rent is. You need to know what your Section 8 rent is. You need to have an estimated rent because whoever you're selling it to wants to know about the exit strategy, right? Then you want to know what the estimated yearly taxes are. And that's an estimate, Joe, because if a permit has to be pulled, you know the tax man and woman's coming out to reassess your property eventually. So you got to give yourself a 10% VIG in that tax, right? It's not going to go down, it's going to go up if you're putting work back into it, if it's tired. Okay. Then you have to understand what property insurance is and what that yearly quote could be, right? Then I'm going to ask you a couple of really basic questions. This is an application process right now. I'm going through it. Do you own your own home? Yes or no? No, I currently rent, live with family, or own a home. No problem. How many investment properties do you currently own today? I get a number, whether it's 0 to 100, whatever that number is. Then my next question is, how many rehabs have you completed in the last 24 months? And then my last question is, how many flips have you completed in the last 24 months? If that's all 0, your pricing is going to be a lot different than somebody who has 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 10 completed projects in the last 24 months. So why not take the wholesale fee and substitute that with a minority interest in the deal? It could be under 19, it could be under 20% where they don't have to look at your credit, but get ownership and look at the long play. I mean, Joe, what's your thoughts on that?
No, listen, that makes complete sense because I actually offered that to the wholesaler. He goes, but then I'm losing 20,000. I said, but you're making. I think the property was bringing 7,000 a year. So, but you would make 7,000 a year. In 3 years, you're 1,000 over your $20,000 assignment, and you have a lifelong property that's going to continually produce. I don't think they get that, Joe. At the end of the day, right? We talk about this all the time. We preach about it, but people don't practice it, right? We're running businesses, right? This is a business. This isn't a hobby. And they're treating it that this is my for now money. It's not my future money. The wholesalers that are intelligent, right, that understand it, that are successful, they can just they can have an empire. They just don't realize it, Joe. And I don't know if it's about education, lack thereof, or spending habits or financial literacy. I don't know what it is, but it's just I need the money now so I can look expensive and get all the men or women that I want, and I could have that flashy car, and I could have the fancy watch, and I could have the gold chain, and all that other stuff. And there was another event that they had a commercial guy, and he was talking about, hey, I hung out with plenty of millionaires, as a developer of real estate. And he goes, none of them have all the flashy stuff. They drive the crappy cars. They don't have the gold chains. They don't have the gold rings. They don't have the expensive suits. They're very frugal, quite honestly. And it's funny because, I mean, I have a net worth of over $1 million, and I had someone say, "Oh, well, you don't know what it is to be a millionaire," and I was like, "Oh, I'm worth over $1 million. No way. You drive a truck from 2019, and you wear $30 sneakers and regular jeans. I'm like, what am I spending money on?"
You're giving yourself credit. They look like $20 sneakers.
I mean, that's just the perception, and I don't know if it's just generational or it's just an image that people have in their head. Right? You look at Warren Buffett; he lives in the same house for 40 years.
Yeah.
And that's truly what your millionaires and billionaires really look like. They have money because they are frugal with their money. They invest their money. They don't spend their money, if that makes sense.
So think about this, Joe, and then we'll move on from this. If a good wholesaler wants to make 20 grand a deal, and they have 4 deals or 5 deals, and they find a guy like Joe Martella, right? Joe's going to take 81% ownership. which means you control the destiny of that property, right? They only have to have 19%. I don't need to look at their credit because they're a minority interest, right? But they own 4 properties now with 19% that are all worth $200,000 a piece. I'm just using 250. They're involved with $1 million portfolio, and all they had to do was waive their wholesale fee in lieu of a 19% ownership. And now, when they call an asset-based lender, they can tell me correctly that they own 4 properties. They've been part of 4 rehab and holds. Okay. And now their pricing is equivalent to a top tier rehabber because all 4 of those properties are on their, they can verify that they were part of the LLC that did that process. And now they're getting 10% money interest with maybe 1.5 on origination. They're getting pricing on the long-term money at 7%, 6.75, 30-year fixed. No questions asked, maxed out at 80%. They're now king of their own castle because they built some soldiers around the castle, right?
I mean, that's like and I'm sure a lot of people watch Shark Tank, right? That's like a Mr. Wonderful deal. Hey, you bring these properties to me, and I'll take on the expense and run them. And when I get my money back, my equity would drop down, right? I'm going to have 100% control until I get my money back, and then I'll take an extra period of equity. We both have ownership, right? You could always work something creative out like that with a wholesaler, but I haven't met a wholesaler that's interested in any of that.
It's absolutely amazing. But thank you, Joseph, for this morning's discussion.
You got it.
Good morning, Mr. ADU, Mr. Rogelio Martinez from beautiful Long Beach, California. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning, navigating the fixed to rent journey.
Good morning, everyone. You know what? I'm happy to be here because this is actually the first time I'm in your room this year, and that's because I've been really, really sick. But yeah. So my name is Rogelio Martinez, like Joseph said, from beautiful Long Beach, California, and I specialize in the value add, and that means that I specialize in helping people convert um, currently unlivable work space like garages into livable and adding square footages. So I'm more like looking at what's known as the building envelope, like how much more can we improve said property to take it to a higher and better use? Because at the end of the day, right after location, 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 it's all about the highest and best utility for said property. What I wanted to complement the discussion was on some of the things that Joseph and Joseph have been discussing, which is first of all, my first comment is on the MLS. So on the MLS, Joseph Martella is absolutely correct. Right now, an investor can use or utilize the power of Zillow as somewhat of a public national MLS system. The only use that I believe that now a traditional agent-based MLS system has now is the agent remarks. Why are the agent remarks something that I wanted to point out? And that's because of the fact that in the agent remarks, based on the experience of the agent, they could actually slip and actually convey the motivation of their client, of the seller. And when you can identify that motivation, you can leverage that motivation to actually help you acquire the property at a much better deal. So yeah, right now I think that the only opportunity in the MLS is rely on the agent remarks and what the agent is communicating to other agents that maybe they didn't think it through, right? Because we're actually what they're communicating is the motivation. The next thing is with wholesaling. I think that the shift is when the young, hungry individuals identify that they can actually do it remotely from anywhere in the country. There is not a lot, but there is quite a few what's known as virtual wholesalers, right? So these are individuals that, excuse me, these are individuals that are actually wholesaling properties, and they're actually not physically, they don't even physically ever meet the seller. They don't physically go to the property. They don't do anything. There's one such virtual wholesaler that actually lives in Vancouver Island in British Columbia, and she actually wholesales properties in Baltimore, Maryland. She has never even been to Baltimore, Maryland. She's a single mother, and she is just literally like, she's commanding her time, and she's doing very, very well. Now, is she killing it? Right? I wouldn't say that, but is she making a living wage where she's sustaining and she's providing for her family? Absolutely. And she's doing it. She's been doing it for quite some time now. With regards to, oh, and then why the wholesalers don't get it, and that's because, in my opinion, they're transactional based. No, and unfortunately, the other class that is transactional based as well is the real estate agents. I often tell real estate agents, if the deal is so good, have you considered actually said property as a property that you would actually add to your portfolio? And they look at me like I'm speaking Chinese. And the reality is that, you know what, there comes a point in time, whether you're a wholesaler or whether you're a real estate agent, where you have to look at the deal as less than, as much more than just a transaction, much more as an asset that you can actually put into your portfolio. And then lastly, it's something that Joseph just mentioned, which is in California, it's an acronym called HOI, which stands for homeowners insurance. In California, because of the fires, because of all the natural disasters that we've had, especially the fires, there has been like a mass exodus of insurance companies that have left California. And so now what that's happened is that a lot of homeowners that were used to paying, say, like $1,100 a month, I'm sorry, a year for HOI. And California has always been relatively low, but now those same homeowners are paying triple. And so HOI has definitely come into homeowners insurance. I apologize. Homeowners insurance has come into the wow. We never really factored that as a cost that could actually throw off the entire deal. But with that, I want to yield the mic, and the reason why is because we're kind of pressing up against our 60-minute block, and we've got Melissa here who also has an abundance of information, and I'd like to, I'd like her to have the opportunity to speak without feeling that she's being rushed. So with that, again, I'm feeling better. Happy to be here, Joseph. Always here to learn and to help. And good morning, everyone. God bless each and every one of you.
Good morning, Rogelio. I'm glad you're feeling better, very much so. I wasn't aware that you weren't feeling ill. You were feeling ill, but Rogelio has been a part of the Creative Birth Strategies from the inception several years ago, and I don't have a problem going 90 minutes if the discussion is healthy, okay? But I always do feel less is more. This is a strategy for landlords understanding. Listen, you have to have some really good understandings here. You got to understand the laws of where you're buying properties. You need to make strategic financial decisions. Okay, understanding the fees and the leasing and the amenities to the units that you're putting online. You need to understand how to streamline operations and reduce costs, automating processes, lowering expenses, optimizing tax deductions. And then you have to understand upgrades to properties strategically to increase rent, to reduce maintenance and energy efficiency. And then also the screening and retaining of quality tenants, checking credit history, offering lease renewals, rewarding prompt payment, building relationships, considering all alternatives to rentals, meaning selling properties or converting units to condos or converting garages to ADUs, the old Fonzie concept, the Cunningham concept from Happy Days. That's becoming extremely present right now in the market, okay, because of the standard of living has the costs have increased, but yet we're not making enough money to support our overhead. So putting that ADU in to create some additional income or moving into the ADU and renting the front house has become kind of the present day opportunity for homeowners as well. Good morning, Melissa. You got a lot of content here. Welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to the discussion this morning, navigating the fix to rent journey.
Yeah, great stuff this morning. Thank you for having me up, Joe. My name is Melissa J. King. I'm a realty bookkeeping and certified administrative professional here in West Michigan. First, I want to get this out of the way. We have an event next week, February 22nd, 23rd, here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It is the Midwest Real Estate Investor Conference. Looks to be pretty big. So if anybody wants to come in and show up and get educated, it looks real good. I'm proud of them this year. So not so much back table stuff anymore, Joe. So, fixed to rent, rent to own is very popular here. I want to mention another thing, how to avoid those professional tenants. Do proper tenant screening, know your local laws. If you're doing it yourself, you can certainly join a local real estate investment group, either locally or online. I know a lot of them are starting to get online. I even attended a local fair housing class, CE, and I was amazed at how those laws have changed. So definitely know your local laws, avoid the professional tenants by doing proper tenant screening. If you're going to use a property manager, please make sure that you're engaged, manage your property manager. Watch your monthly owner statements and your expenses. If you're using a bookkeeper that inputs that information for you, make sure you're reviewing the deliverables that they provide to you so that you can watch those income and expenses, because that's how you're going to tell if you're losing money or not. I wanted to mention also, don't discount LoopNet. I know I was on there a couple months ago, and I actually found a business that had some acreage in the county that I'm moving to, but I was too slow. It was already sold. So I know a lot of people don't use LoopNet anymore because they weren't really finding the deals. But if you're looking for a deal, just put it on your list to check out. That's all I've got for today. Thanks, Joe.
Melissa, good luck with the convention next week. I won't be there this year, but hopefully next year with this new position, I'll be identifying obviously expos throughout the country.
I'm going to see you in Denver, though.
Oh, okay. Oh, excellent. I'll have two discussions there. One on real estate investor mindset. The other will be on understanding asset-based lending, which is actually the premise to the CE course that I'm extending now nationwide for licensed real estate agents, whether it's a 2-credit or 3-credit CE.
Oh, I'm so geek. Right?
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped about it. Listen, I just spent $3,000 in getting it all set up, but I feel like it was the best $3,000 spent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That doesn't sound too out of the realm, really.
No, but I'm focusing. Like, I'm not trying to teach a bunch of classes. I want to focus on the one class that I'm passionate about. Like, because they offered me a bunch of other CE courses to teach, and I'm like, it's going to confuse my brand. My brand is asset-based lending, so I want to stick with that. So, quite excited about it. So again, yeah, I'd love to. If there's an opportunity to discuss, getting the RIA leader of your group onto our podcast, I could do an individual interview to kind of give them some enhanced presence to their RIA. If that's something that I don't know if you know the powers may be at your RIA, but I extend that to you.
I do. I'm on the membership committee as well. We just got a new director, Erica Farley. So I'll talk to her about that. Sounds good.
I appreciate that, Melissa. So, quick recap on Creative Birth Strategies, this house and Clubhouse. We want to thank Clubhouse of allowing this group to grow and prosper. We now have a live podcast on Apple and Spotify. We have sponsors. We have MB Capital. We have Abstract National. We have Realty 411, and we have Perkatech, Yardell Perkins, who's our social media strategist. I call him the Oz behind the drape. And we have events behind us now. We had one out in LA, we had one in Dallas, we're having one in Denver, we're having a second one in Philadelphia. We're now offering worksheets for education for real estate agents and real estate service providers and real estate investors to better pencil your deals down to fix to rent, fix to flip, new construction. We're providing a maximum allowable offer worksheet, a cash flow worksheet, meaning cash on cash. We're giving you a debt service coverage ratio worksheet. We're giving you a rehab construction and draw schedule module. We're now extending. I'm also now putting together a pro forma for multifamily underwriting. So if anybody would like to have that, that's something else. I could send you an example where you could work from. It's a full pro forma on multifamily underwriting, typically 5 through 25, but you can use it for larger projects. And now we can now teach you how to price your own deals out, make you the better investor, or make you a correspondent to Lendmark and work with me in underwriting deals, penciling deals down. Like what I just did and went over that example on how to pencil a deal down is what I do all the time with clients. These are the basic questions, but you got to master it. You got to be a better understanding of, you have to have the better understanding of underwriting a deal to get the deal, one, terms, and two, priced out, and three, and communicate back to your client. So we're now offering lending strategies for hopefully potential lending strategists throughout the country. I would be your point of contact. So I'm very excited about that. That's something that just came about over the last week or two. This was an opportunity to get realigned with the gentleman that got me into the direct private lending space 5 years ago. After I was in the market, I was in the resi-commercial space for almost 18 years. So quite excited about realigning with JP Johnny Pinnell and working with him on opportunities. And like I said, please download our podcast. We're now at episode 9 or 10. We're really getting some really great. I mean, I can't believe we've had thousands of downloads over the last several weeks. So we're at creativeburststrategies.com. Again, you could reach out to me via LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If you'd like to have an off clubhouse discussion on being the better investor, being the better loan officer, being the better real estate agent, and leveraging the knowledge that we can bring to the room. If you'd like to have a CE course at a local group of yours, a real estate office, or a RIA, where there's CE accreditation for the licensed real estate agents involved, we're here to extend that to you. We could talk about that as well. And I like to always finish off the room with a great quote: never forget your own worth. Everybody have a blessed Saturday morning. We'll be back here Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with another great discussion with our great moderators. And I'll be ending the room in the next 30 seconds. And thank you.